Okay, we're going to take a look at something, this issue of noise versus signal. This is pretty important issue, and the idea is there's variation everywhere, absolutely everywhere, and we have to slowly learn how to filter out the variation that matters from the variation that's just randomness, that's just what we call noise. The signal is what we really care about, and the noise is this little variation that makes it a little more difficult to see what kind of signal is going on. So I'm going to go through an example here where we're on VDH's site. I've already selected Harrisonburg. We're looking at coronavirus counts here. I'm going to download the data. Click data. I want you to see how this process goes. Here I've got all the data. I'm going to just download this as a text file. This will get me, what's that called, that CSV file. And then I'm going to open up Sheets. Okay, and once I'm in Sheets, I'm going to go to File, Open or Import. You know what? I'm not even sure. I usually just play around with it and I'll get it one way or another. So we're going to upload, select the file, and we want to get that one that was just downloaded here. So there we go. And we're going to insert a new sheet. Yeah, we'll detect automatically. Okay, let's just go ahead and import it. Some of this stuff you try once. If it doesn't work out, you try something else. Okay, great. So we have the report date, the location. So notice that the location and locality really aren't going to matter to us because it's all Harrisonburg. The only thing that matters here, I'm going to freeze the top row. Make that a little bigger. So we have the date and how many cases, positive cases for COVID there were in Harrisonburg. So the first thing we might do is just select both columns. So I clicked and dragged across A and B. I'm going to insert a chart called a line chart. Okay, and that's actually the chart they gave us by default. We could also choose it if we wanted to. Um, So, what does noise and signal mean here? Well, notice that let's take some time in May here. Okay, we had a fairly high point, over 25, maybe 30 positive cases of COVID in Harrisonburg that day, which was higher than it had been the few days before that. And then that drops the next day, drops down to under 10 cases. So at this point, there's a couple ways to interpret it. One way would be, oh, wow, everything's going well. Suddenly the number of cases is dropping. We really don't need to worry about this as much anymore. Things are under control. Or we could say, well, let's wait and see. Yeah, that may be mildly positive to go from 30 cases down to 10, but it's too soon to tell. That second interpretation, the let's wait and see, is a much wiser statistical interpretation. Because if you're just looking, look at how this case goes back and forth, back and forth. If every time it goes up, you go, panic, and every time it goes down, things are finally under control, you're really missing the bigger trends here. So there's a way that we can do this, and you may have seen this if you've been paying attention to the news. It's called a rolling average, and we can do it for any number of days. I'm going to do a 7-day rolling average. And so what this will be is the average of this day plus the previous ones before it. So here I think I got 7 of them there. I close it off. Okay, and then I copy that down. So you can see that, for example, for September 3rd, I'm not just taking the data from September 3rd, I'm taking the data from that day plus the 6 days before it. So this helps filter out some of that noise so we can focus on the signal, the trends, when it actually is increasing or decreasing. And let's take a look. I'm going to click on C and then shift it over so it's right next to my dates here. And then we can see that in the graph here. So if you look closely, you can see the blue line there, how it's much, much smoother versus the red line, which is really short. So The red line there, you're really packing in all of that noise, and it's a little harder to see where the trend is from day to day. Once you look at that blue line underneath, and we can even, let me see. I was gonna delete column C, but watch what happens when I delete. I'll just do this because this is gonna happen. Suddenly there's no data, so I'm Control Z doing that. I want to keep this data here, so I'm copying it to the clipboard, paste special values only. Now I'll be able to delete column C, and we can see just the 7-day rolling average. And we can make this a 10-day rolling average or a 15. The higher, the more days that we include in our average, the smoother our curve will be. So the advantage is we're really starting to see the overall trends the more we include. The disadvantage is you start to lose some of the stories that, like even right here, you can't really see the giant peak that was up around 100 in April, where there was a senior citizen facility that just kind of major outbreak and everyone was tested and suddenly like the case numbers were way up there. That's a particular story. That's not necessarily a citywide trend. And here, I mean, this is essentially JMU. So this is where JMU started back to school, and within a week, there's 500, 600 positive cases. Not all living in Harrisonburg, but certainly a good portion of them living in Harrisonburg. So this isn't just some kind of noise. This is a real signal that the case count in Harrisonburg when JMU started just erupted. So that's the advantage of noise and signal. Noise is what's going to make it hard. It's that both of them are variation, but the noise is this variation that's just randomness, whereas the signal is the variation you really want to see because there's some kind of trend that you might need to make a decision on or that you want to understand a concept a lot better. So some of what we do in statistics is trying to reduce the noise and focus on the signal or look at how strong that signal actually is. Let me give you just one more example. Oftentimes when people go on a diet or they start lifting or start practicing a sport or something, they're very, very attentive to the tiny little changes. So if I'm going on a diet and I notice that my weight goes down by zero point 0.2 pounds and then down by another zero point 0.2 pounds the next day, I start to get really excited. And it goes up by zero point 0.3 pounds. And I think, oh no, is my diet not working? Or um, what's going on here? Same thing with sports. You might have a couple practices where you see your times go down, which is a good thing if you're running, and then suddenly they go up a bit, and you start to wonder, oh no, is something going wrong? And a lot of times this is just day-to-day variation. This is why we have to relax and look for the bigger trend instead of just constantly being hyper focused on every little detail. Remember, that would be the noise. The signal is the underlying bigger trend, is what we're looking